and welcome back to It's Queer Magic. It is me, your host, Kirbo. Hello. It's been a minute. What are we doing today? I'm so glad you asked because this is a very exciting moment for both of us in our relationship. We are really embarking on a new journey together and I almost can't believe it's real. So I have been internally struggling because I'm literally alive. I'm a human being and there's stuff going on in there. So I've been struggling on how I want to present myself. What do I want to even share? How do I want to be perceived on the internet? And I came across this project that Saint Ruthless, or possibly Truthless, I don't know, but they're linked below, has offered for us. And I've joined. I'm joining. I'm doing it. And this is the very first video in that project called the Alphabet Superset. And if you want to join us, the link's below. Watch the video, get on board. We are making something. And the point is that I make these and post them no matter how I feel about them. So here we go. This is a journey of magic through the alphabet, witchcraft through the alphabet, the ABCs of being a magical baby. So this week, what are we starting with? None other than A. And because of that, we're going to talk about altars. Here we go. Okay, first things first, I'm talking about altar with an A. I don't care really about spelling. Some people would argue it's really important. Some other people would argue it's not important at all. But just to clear it up in case you're curious, alter, A-L-T-E-R, means to change something, to adjust it. Something is one way, you alter it, and it is now different, right? So that's what that word means. A-L-T-A-R is what we're talking about today, and that is, for witches, the place where you do your magic. It houses your spirits. It's the place that you go to engage with your energy and with your magical tools. And someone once said that it is an external manifestation of your internal landscape, and I highly resonate with that. And because of that, interpretation of it, it really shifts the way that I engage with my altar at all. It's if this is going to be how I feel on the inside represented on the outside, that sort of changes how clean it needs to be, right? How organized it needs to be, how engaged with it I want to be. And it's not important that it's minimalist or neat necessarily, right? It just matters that it doesn't feel like a tangle in your energy. If you start to feel like a tangle in your mind, it might start to look more dusty or more complicated. If you are neglecting it and it gets a little dusty and complicated and messy, you might start to feel that on the inside. So making an altar is an amazing thing and something I recommend almost everybody to do. But I also recommend you make it in a way that works for you so that you can actually be benefited by it and not hindered by it. And an altar is special, it's a special place. It's your place. It's only has to mean anything to you. It doesn't have to follow anybody's rules. It doesn't have to follow anybody's guidelines. As long as it actually works for you and feels good, then your altar is connected to you. And I have some tips, a couple quick tips, and then we're going to talk about ways to queer your altar, which I know you're going to love. Okay? My tips. The first tip is that it does not have to be permanent. When you look at altars online, there's so many big, beautiful ones that are a whole room or a big table, and it may feel difficult or impossible to have a dedicated space that's going to be your altar in your living space right now. And that's really fine. It's actually great. It's perfect. You can set up an altar for a working and put it away. You can set up an altar for a moon and you can put it away, right? Putting it away does not decrease its magic, especially if you are ritualizing that process. So don't feel like it has to be a permanent fixture in your home. And along those same lines, it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be small. It can be whatever feels good to you. If you want it to be an entire room, baby, make it an entire room. They used to make them, I don't know if they still do this, but they used to make them as small in little Altoid tins. Adorable. That's perfect. Little teeny things that represent things. And you know what? Your altar doesn't even have to be physical. If you want to have an altar in the astral or an altar in your mind, or an altar in the spirit world that you visit through meditation, you can do that too. You can do all your spells in the astral world, but we'll talk about that at another time if that's something that's interesting for you. But that is important, right? We don't need it to be anything it can't be. There's no reason that you shouldn't or couldn't more. There's no reason that you couldn't have an altar. And all of the reasons that we can come up with are dogmatic rules that don't actually affect what's real in your actual life. So if you're reading a text that says your altar has to be 6 foot by 6 foot, close the book and make an altar that actually works for you. That's better 10 times out of 10. Really along those same lines, like your altar is what you make it, right? It's also what you put into it. It gives back to you what you put into it. So we talk a lot about consistency. We talk a lot about like commitment, and those things are important, but it's really important to find your definition of consistent and committed, because none of us are the same. We all have different spoons and availabilities. We all have different abilities to engage in this stuff. So it's like, if consistent for you is every 2 weeks, then it's every 2 weeks, as long as it's something that you are returning to, right? And if you find you're trying to show up your altar every 2 weeks, and because it's 2 weeks, it gets really messy and really dirty and it doesn't feel good, then put it away. It doesn't have to be out. You can put it out and you can put it away, or you can downsize to make it just the necessities so it stays clean to your standards and stays comfortable for you. I don't want to add more steps so it's something you don't do. I really want to encourage you to make it something that works. And if it doesn't feel good to go every 2 weeks, but you don't have the ability to do it more often, then adjust its size, adjust its permanence, and make it something that works. Because as much as you put into it, as much energy as you put into it, is as much as it's going to be able to hold for you and give back to you. It's a dance, it's a commitment, it's a relationship. So the more that you give it, the more that your bond really increases and strengthens. And that strong bond between the witch and the altar is a lot of times the difference between a satisfied witch, a happy witch, and a witch who has a home base, a comfort zone, and one who constantly feels uprooted. So, I don't know, food for thought. When it comes to stuff on the altar, anything that means something to you, that is safe for you to engage with, that is calling to you to be on the altar, put it on the altar. Nothing is, again, permanent. You can take it off if you're like, I actually hate this. Or if you are reading something and they're like, this doesn't belong there, but you have a strong feeling and it's connecting you to something, just do it. The one thing that, in my opinion, is actually important is if you're doing an ancestor altar to people who are dead, don't put in a picture of a living person. Make a copy of that picture and cut out the living person. No living people on dead people's altars. It's just, we don't want to be rude. I'm sure it has other consequences, but in the very least, it's rude. So don't do that. But other than that, put it on the altar if you're called to put it on the altar. If it's your jewelry, if it's your art tools, if it's whatever it is, and you want it on the altar, put it on the altar. It can be your travel cup, right? It can be your tumbler, right? That you bring to work every day, but you put it on the altar after you wash it when you get home, and you take it off the altar to take it to work. What do? You imbue that with your magic. You imbue that with the spirit's energy that you work with. It has a connection to you and has a power. So the energy that you put into it, the liquid that you put into it, with any intention that you use, it will be powered up like a charging station. Right? You get that. Now, of course, you cast spells at an altar. Of course, you can meditate. But here is a rapid fire list of other things that you could do at the altar. Eat. Pray. Love. Bang. You could live, laugh, love. All those things. You could sing, you could dance, you can do a craft, you can paint, you can write, you can read aloud, you can share a meal with the energies that you invite to your space. You can You can masturbate, you can have sex, you can literally do anything that you are trying to be really good at, that you're trying to practice. Do that at your altar. Anything you want to imbue with a sense of power and your own essence, and you want assistance from the elements or assistance from the spirits that you work with, light at the altar and do it there. You don't have to constantly be doing spells, and you don't have to constantly be meditating. Just spending time, even being still, practicing presence is a powerful way to spend time at your altar. You can even do skincare, okay? Hair care. Skincare and hair care are very powerful, magical practices, and doing them at your altar only makes it more powerful. Okay, now I really quickly want to cover a couple of frequently asked questions, and then we'll get right into queering up your altar. Okay, FAQs, fire safety. Can we please talk about this really quick? Listen, there are things that are spell ingredients or that are popular witchcraft aesthetic items that are flammable. Right? Flammable. That's real. If you are in an apartment, in an enclosed building, if you're literally anywhere, fire safety is very important. So I recommend literally like going to Home Depot or wherever and getting a small fire extinguisher. It is worth the investment. It's not a lot of money, and it will give you a sense of peace and actually increase your chances of safety and survival if the worst happens. Things catch on fire when we are using fire and energy and spirits and magic, things that can enhance a flame. Please, we want to be able to put this fire out. And a lot of spells are better if they are burned in one go. And that means that a lot of witches are like, what do I do? I'm scared to burn this overnight. And you know what? You should be, because there is not a safe way to do it. Hear me. There is not a guaranteed safe way to burn a candle unattended overnight or all day for an extended period of time. There is not a safe way to do it. That being said, if you are going to burn a candle for an extended period of time, I do recommend that it is monitored. It is not left unattended. But if you're going to burn a candle for an extended period of time, put it in a fire-safe dish. I love putting it in a dish that is like stone or ceramic or metal and filling that dish with water, right? One, that acts as an offering to power your spell. And also, if something tips over, you have the water rushing out from that vessel to help extinguish any of the flame. Also, sand is really good. Salt. The thing about salt is that it can also catch fire. Surprise, it can catch fire. So you just want to be mindful that you are not using too many things that are going to be flammable, and that your flame is actually, like, we say this, we hear it from like school and work safety, and then we forget it in witchcraft. Like, literally keep hanging things, flammable dried herbs that are hanging up so beautiful. If they are within 6 inches, within 8 inches of a flame, you are in danger. Make sure that you're keeping anything else that could catch fire away from the tip of your flame. Test it. Put your hand up and see how tall the heat gets, so that you are keeping yourself and your family safe. Okay? No spell is worth burning your house down over. Promise you. Promise you. So don't do it. Remember, when you're using herbs and you're rolling your candles in herbs because you've anointed them with the oils and you're putting the herbs on there, like, you don't need a lot. You do not need a lot. You shouldn't be using an entire 2 pinches of spearmint or whatever. Just a little bit. Blend it together a little bit, just enough to lightly coat your candle. Lightly, because herbs are what? Flammable. Exactly. Glitter is what? Flammable, and it could burst, right? So we want to be smart and we want to be safe. So we are not going wild with the flammable items all over the candle that is actively burning a flame, right? It might look really nice to have a fully encrusted candle with herbs, but there's no need to be wasteful. The herbs are incredibly powerful, and you do not need tablespoons and tablespoons, handfuls to coat the candle. I promise, a little bit goes a long way. And honestly, if you can powder them or buy them powdered, Highly recommend. A little pinch of powdered herbs is just as powerful as a pinch of whole herb or just ripped up herbs. And if you can't buy them powdered, you can use a mortar and pestle, which will take you a while, or you can just put it in an Old Spice or coffee grinder. Okay, get it powdered, bing, bang, boom. Light dusting, carve your spell into the candle and put it just in those crevices if you want. It's really wonderful. When you're anointing with oil, use a little bit, not a lot. We don't want our entire altar engulfed in flames. That is not a good sign that your spell worked. Okay? Okay. The other frequently asked question I get is about food offerings on the altar. A lot of ancestor altars and deity altars, other spirit altars require a lot of times, or at least recommend, food offerings. And people are always like, how long do I leave it on there? Do I have to do it? Like, what about bugs? Totally. One, no, you do not have to do it. Some cultures, some spirits, and some deities are absolutely going to require it from you. So I would not recommend engaging with them if you find that that is a requirement, but you are not willing to put that up there. I would think about it. I would consult that culture, that deity's people on the planet, they're humans, and see what other people say, see what a substitute could be if that's your situation. But ultimately, you can usually find a way to do it. And that's like specific. So if that's not you, don't worry about it. If you are someone who wants to put food on the altar and you're worried about bugs, you don't have to use like fresh hot food, right? Like you don't have to use a bowl of rice. Although I have not met a spirit that has been like, ew, get that rice away from me. Or cornmeal, polenta, beautiful. Or fresh whole fruit where you just clean it, rinse it, and make it really dry so you don't attract more bugs, and put the whole fruit out there. I love doing that. But if that's not you, just stick to dried food. Stick to dried food. To nuts. You know, unsalted, salted, whatever. If you're going to offer them to nature afterwards, then unsalted is best so that you're not giving salt. Those squirrels don't need sodium. They don't need preservatives. You know what I'm saying? So stick to the natural stuff, or the unsalted, unseasoned stuff. But if that's not an option for you and you know you're not going to put it out for animals to eat, then just toss it. I say max 3 days of food items on the altar before you change it out and refresh it. Some things can definitely last longer. Some things won't last as long. Just pay attention. If it starts to get gross, throw it away. If it starts to dry out and it's not getting gross, depending on what you're working with, that might be fine. That might be something where you want to wait until it's completely dried out to take it off. But that you can consult with your people. You can ask me in the comments. I'll let you know. If it's a specific situation, I can see if I can help you. But ultimately, if it's drying out at a good rate and it doesn't seem to be growing gross, I recommend leaving it, personally, from my experience. But you can toss offerings away in the trash in your house if you have to, but I recommend doing it in an outside trash, like a dumpster or the big can that goes to the street. It's just better. I don't even know why, but I feel like it's better. That's what I always do, and I recommend it. And it's the same, paste that you're throwing away like flowers on the altar. If they're going gross, you just toss them. It's no big deal. And when it comes to dried food, you're not going to recognize it going bad. A week maybe for a handful of almonds or cashews or dried fruit or chocolate chips or whatever. Hard candies can last a little longer, but ultimately once it's been offered, after a while, the energy is gone from that food. So after like a week-ish, just toss it and find something new. You do not have to do food offerings. These are just questions for people who do want to do them. That's my recommendation for that. And now we're moving into the exciting part where we're just going to quickly give you a couple ways to queer up your altar. The first one may sound obvious, but dude, the pride flag and all the iterations of the pride flag mean something. It's not just a rainbow because, right? It's not just colors thrown together because. They mean something. And the turquoise, I believe, in the original pride flag literally stood for magic. So not only was there magic and spirit, there was also nature and serenity. So what, does that not sound witchy to you? Does that not sound magical to you? The pride flag means something, and you can call in all of the energies from each of those colors into your space and into your altar by putting a pride flag, whatever version resonates with you. Look at the versions, if you like the progress pride flag or the original, go through and see what calls to you, see what the meanings represent, and choose one that works for you and put it on your altar. You'll be calling in those beautiful energies. Now, a lot of us, when we come out of the closet, or even before that, we just realize we are gay or lesbian or genderqueer or trans or non-binary. We are coming into a new identity, a truer identity. And I think it's a beautiful thing to put pieces of this new identity on the altar. Like, even if it's just your new name that you write down to put power into it, you can put that on the altar. You can even use things that you're trying to call out of you, that you're trying to coax to the surface and call into your body as something that you want to embody for your new identity. You can do that as well. If you don't know necessarily who the new version of you is yet, you can pull in like courageous or friendly or whatever, right? Put either a physical list or just items that represent that on your altar, and have it be an altar to the new version of yourself that will allow it a pathway to come forward. I think that that's such a beautiful thing. And along those same lines, you can write a letter to your either like your inner child, the young version of you, or just the closeted version of you, with any message that you want to send across time. Time is a spiral, right? It's a flat spiral, so we can heal across time. So if you write a letter to the closeted version of you or the young version of you with encouragement and strength and love and affirmation, then you will absolutely receive that healing in the past and in the present and in the future. So that is a wonderful way to connect with the whole version of yourself and to send some beautiful love and healing energy to the old version of you. The other list, I would say, is to make a list of the ways that you see the world changing, or the way that you want the world to change. It's Queer Magic's whole thing that we believe that queers and deviants have the information. They are a portal through which the new world can be born. And so all of the ways that you want the world to change, all of the ways that you want the world to get better, write them down and keep them on the altar, giving power and energy to them. It's a beautiful way to do your part for yourself, to cultivate hope in yourself, and to pull those energies into the future. The next two are fun, right? Okay, poppers and pop icons. So are you in a tight situation? Do you need something to relax? Do you need something to loosen up? That's not your you-know-what? A bottle of poppers can add that tension relief, that loosening and widening energy, you know what I mean, to your energy as opposed to just your physical body. That's a beautiful way to do it. You can also bless those, but that's a different video. And pop icons. Now, we are not talking about the people, right? We're not, every queer celebrity and icon has a family and has actual ancestry. And I think it's really important to not cross that line. And they also were embodying a queer archetype. The things that you like about them might not necessarily be the person that they were, but the archetype that they embody. So putting up the things that you love about Harvey Milk, putting the things that you love about even like fictional characters, cartoons, and of course pop stars and movie stars, anything that works for you, that calls to you, whose archetype you want into your life, put those images and items that represent them on your altar to bring through that energy into your life. And the last thing that I would say is a community protection spell to connect and protect and send beautiful, powerful protection energy to everybody under the umbrella of the queer community to bolster our safety and security through these hard times. If that's in your bag and within your skill set, I highly recommend keeping a protection spell that can be refreshed, something like a bottle or jar spell, or a bi-weekly or a monthly candle spell that you burn down, just to have something for us, because what is queerness without community, right? So sending that love, sending that protection around will definitely connect you physically and spiritually to the rest of us and add to the power that we give to each other to keep each other safe. Those were the few ways to queer your altar. If you're looking for more, you can actually go to the website, itsqueermagic.com, to the blog where we have 10 ways that you can queer up your altar space. And you'll see these plus a few more and get a little more insight on all of those things. So if that's interesting to you, please check it out. And that's it. That's altar. We've done it. First week. And you know what? There's another one coming. I won't tell you what it is, but it does start with A. And these videos are going to go up Monday and Wednesday from now until 26 letters from now. And stick around to see what we figured out for X, because yes, honey, it was hard, but we figured out a couple of videos and I know you want to know which ones they are. So join us, subscribe if you want to, love that. Like if you want to, love that. Follow me on Instagram if you want to, love that, at It's Queer Magic. And put in the comments any other questions you have about altars or anything that you like to share. Tell me, what's one thing on your altar that maybe people wouldn't expect to be there? Something that is just like a little quirky or really personal to you that maybe we wouldn't expect. It's not like a crystal or a candle. It's a clown doll from 1964. No judgment. I'm actually not afraid of clowns. I actually love them, so I would love to hear that. All right, have a good day. I'll see you in a couple of days. Love you a mil. Bye.